Welcome to GateCrashers, a podcast dedicated to kicking open the door to your next favorite thing. Our mission, our creed, our code is this: to make all things more approachable and accessible to everyone. We want you to find a universe that you'll fall in love with.
Happy Pride Month. Today, we have an extra special episode of GateCrashers Podcast here to talk about all things queer. We have three queer folks here to talk about some queer media and its importance to our development as queer people. My name is Patrick, and my pronouns are he, him.
My name's Amanda, and my pronouns are she, her.
My name is Bernadette, and my pronouns are she, her.
Yay, Bernadette's
Today
here.
we are GayCrashers.
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 Yes. So, so welcome, Bernadette, to the podcast. This is your first episode here with us. We have...
Yes.
Not from lack of trying.
Yeah, we've bullied her multiple times. She said yes this time. So
Yes.
But yeah, it's we're looking forward to this episode because all three of us are queer folks, and there's queer media has been important to us, and that's actually how three of us have bonded, and our friendship in a lot of cases have kind of come up from enjoying a lot of the same media. So I think this is going to be a really exciting and interesting episode, and I hope you guys all enjoy our special episode we got going here.
Yay!
Yay!
Yes. Yeah. All right. So first question I have for everybody: what was the first time that you saw something that was actually queer and not just queer coded?
I think Bernadette should go first.
I do too.
Because yours is an actual answer.
Yes, my answer is different. My answer is Will and Grace, which, I definitely only caught in the later years that it was airing, and like up to 2006, where we were about 12, 13 at the time, and it was definitely airing in that primetime cable spot where it was on what was on TV while my family was eating dinner and after our family was eating dinner. And it was just, in the years before streaming services where you really only got to watch what was currently airing at the time and not just pick whatever you wanted to watch. But I remember that being one of the first shows on TV where characters were openly and unashamedly gay. And it was seriously groundbreaking media at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think technically the first thing I watched that had queer stuff in it was probably some episodes of Friends that were in the background, because there's basically background characters that are queer in that, but I don't distinctly remember that being, I don't distinctly remember the lesbian couple in that Ross's ex and all that stuff.
Your brain did not go, look, gay people.
Yeah,
and they were not main characters.
And they were also a joke, so that's another issue. But I think for me, the first thing I watched with an actual queer character, particularly a main character, is Glee. That was, 2000s into 2010s, kind of
started in 2009.
Yeah, 2009.
I had to Google it because I had a thought of, actually, maybe that isn't my first, and it's not, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. So that started when we were in high school. I
feel like that was also groundbreaking media at the time when it was first airing.
Oh,
absolutely, yeah,
for multiple reasons too.
Yes.
Yeah, and it was something that I distinctly remember. Kurt's character was gay. That was the point of his character, really, from the beginning.
Also, his character was created.
Yes, yeah, created for Chris Colfer because he auditioned to be Artie. Is that right?
Yeah.
So it was a really big moment, especially in high school when I was trying to figure out my life and what my queerness and all that kind of stuff. So it was really a big moment to see a queer person on TV, and there ends up being multiple queer characters in that show as the story progresses. So that was definitely probably the first one for me, at least that I did remember, and certainly the first one that my parents were aware of me watching. And that was on a television and not something that I watched on my computer at 6 a.m. when my parents were still asleep.
Yeah, I went looking to see when Glee started and saw that it was 2009 because I just had a brain blast of I actually don't think that was the very first queer media I'd ever seen. The very first queer media that I believe I ever saw was A Shot at Love with Tila Tequila.
Oh my God.
When did that come out?
2007.
I do remember that show.
I definitely remember that.
Yep. It didn't occur to me. To be fair, at no point did seeing queer media at any point in my childhood make me go, that's different. I was just like, okay. So yeah, I loved watching all of those MTV shows. I watched Flavor Flav. I watched the Rock of Love. I watched that. And yeah, Tila Tequila, A Shot at Love. Tila Tequila is bisexual. And so it was a dating show with men and women on it. And I thought it was really fun.
Yes. Yeah, I do remember watching that, though. I think I watched it about the same time as Glee. It was definitely one of those.
I was an avid, there's a new episode out. Let's go.
Yeah, that was definitely one of those shows that it'd be like, I would pet sit for one of my neighbors, and they're like, yeah, we want you to hang out for an hour, but you can watch TV, just spend time. And then I was like, ooh, what TV can I watch? And then it'd be like, oh, I'm watching MTV things like Tila Tequila, or I'm watching Logo. So that's it's anyway.
What TV?
I feel
what
like
TV
you
shows
had
am
to-
I not allowed to watch at home normally?
I don't even think it was a what I'm not allowed to watch. It was I don't want to have the conversation with my parents about it.
Yeah.
So I'm not. Anyway.
I feel like to watch Logo at that, especially in the early 2000s, you had to seek it out. You had to know what Logo was and to be I'm going to go watch the gay channel.
No, I definitely think it was I definitely was oh, what should I look at? And I think they had DirecTV or something, and I want to say Logo was kind of slotted in with the MTV VH1 kind of range of channels, and I was like, oh, what's this show? And it was gay. Oh, all right. And then being well, I guess this is what I'm going to watch while I'm here. And yeah, and that was kind of, and I remember seeing that was kind of the first place I remember seeing music videos where the the plot of the music video was gay, and it wasn't just there were boys kissing as part of the music video, girls kissing or whatever.
It's entirely possible that the first queer media I ever saw was actually a music video, but I don't remember what it would have been because I was also an avid watcher of just MTV music videos.
Yeah.
I would just put the MTV channel on and just let it run.
Yeah. Which, it is possible, but really, when we were when Glee was first coming on, I think with the exception of maybe I Kissed a Girl by Katy Perry, I it's really the only mainstream music video that would have ended up on MTV that I could think of. Where now there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them on there. So
also MTV doesn't do that anymore. So
well, yeah, but MTV does have Drag Race now, so it's not they're afraid of queer content. So but
they ruined my ADHD friendly channel of just go.
Right.
Don't stop.
Yeah, that's what YouTube's for now.
Unfortunately. Okay, I think Glee is probably the first thing I ever saw where my brain said, oh, that's gay.
Yeah. And probably
because my brain did not say that to Tila Tequila. I was just like, yeah, that's normal, right?
Yeah. And that's by design. Ryan Murphy, when he was, with Kurt's character, he wanted you to go, oh, this is a gay thing. We are, you're being confronted with the fact that he is gay. Because, it was important storyline for the time. 2009, only a couple of states, so there was gay marriage, even, for example.
They also made him as purposely flamboyant as possible.
Well, yes, that too.
I think the other part that's important is that, we're thinking about all of these shows in the context of like before streaming services were really a thing. Like Netflix was still sending you like DVDs in the mail. And I'm sure this varies by household, but like Glee wasn't so much even something that I was watching. It was like my parents were watching it in the living room. So if I was watching it, I was watching it with them. So it was kind of like primetime content that was enjoyable for like the whole family. So it wasn't just like media that we were consuming on our own, either like on our phones or on our laptops. It was something that like your whole family was watching together potentially, which I think changes the impact that it has.
Yeah, it's really tricky. Yeah, because it was on Fox, I think, and you're right. It was in that primetime spot, and you would watch TV. You kind of had to watch TV together, and that's a good point.
For yourself.
Yeah.
A lot of people watch TV together, I guess. More so than probably now. Though I did just recently spend yesterday at my parents' to watch the new episode of Bridgerton together. So,
Okay, but you also have yearly Oscar movies marathons, so
I can't believe you watch Bridgerton with your family though.
Listen, the thing is, if Bridgerton, this is related. If Bridgerton was gayer, I think I would be less inclined to watch it with my family, but it's just a bunch of straight people having sex, so it doesn't bother me that much.
No, it's the same amount of bother for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, I also watched Poor Things with my mother this year. So, and I don't think either of you have seen it, but
and I don't plan to.
Emma Stone is naked a lot in that. So, it is what it is.
You were after you saw Poor Things, you were so certain. You were like, Amanda, I think this is a movie that you would like. And then I looked up the Wikipedia plot line and I was like, why the fuck did he think I would like this?
Listen, that conversation was so long ago, I don't even remember having it. So who knows?
You don't remember a lot of our conversations.
Yeah. Listen, my brain is broken.
But I remember everything you do, like tripping over that fence at school.
True. Fair enough. I still have the mark on my leg, so it is what it is. So now that was kind of the first time that any of us had seen actually queer people on TV, but it is certainly not the first characters that we've seen that were inspired by queer folks. And really, that kind of brings us to the topic of queer-coded villains. And this is something that is really common, not even just in like a Western stuff, but in like anime and a lot of different stuff around the world where the villain is somebody they're flamboyant, they're over the top, in some cases literally inspired by actual queer people. So I guess kind of what was the first time that you guys kind of came to the realization about how often media was pulling from queer culture into really like a lot of different things, especially when it comes to the villain?
I wouldn't be able to tell you that. Everything I know just suddenly appears in my brain, and I don't know when I learned it. I can tell you that probably the first queer-coded villain I ever watched was Ursula from Little Mermaid.
I was going to say that one.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I might have made this up, but I'm pretty sure Ursula was inspired by an actual drag queen.
I also vaguely recall that.
Yeah, and
but it's only ever like obvious in retrospect.
For sure. But even like Disney in general is pretty egregious about this. There's a lot of queer coding around a lot of their villains during like kind of the height of those movies. Like
I was going to say
Jafar, Scar, and Lion King. There's a lot of examples of villains who are queer coded, and even things like, like in Lilo and Stitch, one of the aliens dresses as a woman to disguise himself.
I love Pleakley.
Yes. He's great, and it's a great movie because I think in that case it's done kind of.
I'm not even really mad about that one.
Yeah,
well, you can't really get mad at it because like it starts as kind of a joke, and then Pleakley's like, no, actually, I love this.
We're keeping this.
Yeah,
we're staying this way. Also, Ursula was inspired by drag queen Divine.
Oh, by Divine, yes. That obviously, now that you've said that out loud, I was like, yes, of course, that makes sense. Divine is the one
appeared in Pink Flamingos.
Yes, and a lot of John Waters movies. Divine was actually the first person to play Tracy's mom in the original Hairspray, which John Waters directed. But Divine is also the one that is in the video that shows up on TikTok, or sound shows up on TikTok, and it's like, legalize murder, kill everyone now. That is Divine.
I could get behind that.
Yeah. So that actually makes, now that you've said that, and I now have more of a cultural lexicon of who Divine is, that makes sense to me. But
I mean, the only reason it took me this long to Google it is because all of the articles were from 2023. And I was like, okay, but are you talking about why Melissa McCarthy looks a specific way? Or are you talking about the original Ursula? Because then my brain started conflating Divine with, a drag queen friend that the Try Guys have that appear in their videos a lot.
Fair enough. I would say as much as I do love Ursula as a character, but I think Ursula is probably the most egregious example of literally taking a queer thing, and because Ursula's not a drag queen, Ursula is, as far as they've indicated, a cis woman. So definitely, probably the biggest example of like taking queer culture to make this villain and, kind of be done with. Though I would argue that what Ursula did isn't that villainous because she lays out everything to Ariel in the contract, and Ariel signed it anyway. So,
Well, the villainous thing is that she signed the contract and then said, okay, now I'm going to sabotage you so that you're guaranteed to fail. That's the bad thing. Your man. It
Fair
wasn't
enough.
the contract.
Fair enough. But kind of, like in general, there's a lot of things Disney does of like, if the villain's male, that they tend to be kind of. Sorry?
Facilier from Princess and the Frog.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes. Yeah, they kind of they're flamboyant, or they're softer, or they're there are jokes about their about beefy men or something like that.
I mean, they're also almost always exclusively outcasts from society.
That too. but even like Lepan, who isn't necessarily that, right? Lepan, the Gaston's friend from Beauty and the Beast.
LeFou.
LeFou. I don't know who. Yeah. Anyway, LeFou. Thank you.
The rabbit from Dimension 20, Crown of Candy.
You're right. You're absolutely right. That is the Dimension 20 thing.
That's Zach Oyama.
My brain wires are crossing in my brain. No, LeFou, he's like the villain sidekick, and he's clearly in love with Gaston to the point that when Josh Gad played him in the live action one, Josh Gad was like, "Oh, I'm playing him as gay."
One of the many first gay characters that Disney has ever had.
Yes. Yeah.
They have a new first every 6 to 12 months.
Yeah. And the other, and Disney talks about, they support queer people. They did, sue Florida, whatever. But they're a great example of like kind of taking in general just the queer ideas and not really, it's performative, because like, one of the first queer characters they had was the cop from Onward, and everybody's like, we don't need the cop to be a lesbian. Like we actually would prefer if she wasn't, and
she's actually a class traitor.
Yeah. Fact.
Because they're doing it for capitalist and consumerist reasons.
Yeah. Yeah, because in fact, ACAB includes the the lesbian centaur from Onward, so but yeah, there's a lot of examples, but even I think in anime too, that is something that like in a lot of Japanese stuff, that there is a lot of queer and a lot of queer queer coded villains, and in some cases even actually queer villains. I know there's one in Yu Hakusho, and like the final arc, I'm not going to remember any of their names, so apologies. There's one in Inuyasha, that swordsman who like dressed as a woman and like flirted with Inuyasha a lot.
The Yu Hakusho villain is Itsuki.
Suki, yes. I can barely remember English names, so apologies. But
I'm Googling it for you.
Yes, yeah.
Also, another Google correction. The Onward cop was not one of the earliest ones. It was actually Oaken from Frozen and his husband at their spa.
Oh, yes.
Was that textual though, or fan?
No. People were saying that it doesn't count because at no point does Oaken say that is his husband. And everybody was like, that could be his brother. But they show the other men and their children. And he's like, that is my family.
You're right.
Yeah. And I want to say it was one of those things that Disney like did not put it into the text, but has later said, yeah, they are.
Like when fans came out and said, oh, I interpret this way. And then Disney will like not deny it and be like, okay, I guess that's real now.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so there are plenty of them, and it really is kind of interesting, really thinking back and thinking about all of the, kind of the thing where like gays love the villains, right? And then as you go back and look, and you're like, oh, it's because they're like us, So I definitely.
Do you love the villain, or are you being brainwashed?
Yeah, basically. But luckily, there's been, in more recent years, in some cases before, for example, the Supreme Court decision that legalized gay marriage across the country, but especially afterwards, where things started to become a lot more accepted because it's just something that is allowed now. There does seem to be a lot more actively queer moments in TV, movies, things like that. So what are some really important queer moments from TV and movies that have really kind of like defined a show for you, or like kind of was important for your personality or your development as a queer person? What are some moments or even just whole shows or movies that have really inspired you?
I mean, I was just kind of having the thought here. Okay, let me answer the question first. The answer to the question is Glee, when Blaine and Kurt kissed. Yes. I lost my fucking mind. Because I think that was maybe like, well, also they gave it like a lot of gravitas. Like they very much like blocked it in a way where they were like, this is monumentous. And we're like, you're right, it is. So probably that. If I'm being honest, every time there's like explicitly queer stuff in media, I'm now that I am more aware of how little there is, when I see it, I'm like shocked every single time. Do you not remember my reaction to Our Flag Means Death? Where I was like, oh, this is actually gay.
Yeah. And I think that is kind of like a symptom of our age of.
Well, also like not to interrupt, but especially because like 99% of my queer media intake is fandom.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So like it's really hard for me to be like, oh yeah, this piece of media profoundly influenced me and it's actually queer, because I can, like, if I go back, I'm like, no, it probably isn't. Like, I can maybe count on one hand the amount of media that I feel like had a profound impact on me and is also explicitly queer, as opposed to like, no, these characters are gay in my head and you can't say anything about it.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Like, I think the only other thing I can think of right now is She-Ra.
Yeah. Yeah, She-Ra is a great example.
I think the other thing that is, important to realize as we've watched these shows come and go over the years since like the early 2010s to now is that when we're finding that line between when it's explicit and textual versus subtextual versus queer baiting. We've seen in a lot of shows, it's like there are multiple levels of approvals that need to happen between writers and showrunners and executives. And sometimes we're unfortunately faced with shows where things either have to start out as subtextual or stay subtextual because of, higher level executives that prevent things from being as explicit as, the writers might want them to be. One example that I think of, and it's a good example, I think, of how things have changed over the years is Adventure Time, which aired between 2010 and 2018. It felt like so much changed in that span of time that character relationships that started out as subtextual were allowed to become more textual and more clear and explicitly shown in later seasons because of the amount of change and boundary pushing that happened in the children's animation space. Specifically with, Marceline and Princess Bubblegum, what started out as a hinted headcanon type situation where like characters were shown like wearing each other's t-shirts or sweaters in various episodes, ended with like a kiss in the season finale or the series finale, because of, the work that was done, by that show, by other showrunners, She-Ra, Steven Universe, forcing boundaries to be pushed and allowing showrunners to tell more authentic stories and not be shut down by executives.
Yeah, I think it is a really good point. I think a good example of this is kind of the like Gravity Falls which was premiered in 2012 and ran in 2016 on Disney Channel. The writers and the showrunner Alex Hirsch wanted to make two of the characters be in a gay relationship, and they were told by Disney no. But then Dana Terrace, who worked on Owl House, actually is married to Alex Hirsch, created the Owl House which premiered in 2020, ran in 2023, and that's something that was explicitly queer, where the main character was bisexual. There was non-binary characters, there were same-sex parents, there was same-sex kiss between the main characters. So, it was a huge change. Now, I think something that is a bit of a concern is that Owl House was really kind of canceled earlier than they wanted it to be because of shifting attitudes about queer representation in children's media. And really that kind of ended. And it was along the same time that Disney canceled the Nimona movie before it got picked up by Netflix. So, there's a lot of, it's kind of an interesting arc. But yeah, they're really children's media, and it does kind of feel like I find myself, and you probably feel the same way, Bernadette, about watching a lot of shows that really are ultimately made for children, Steven Universe, Owl House, things like that. But I know for me, it's been really they're still good shows and anybody can watch them. But also, it's been kind of fun being able to watch those because they are geared towards children and they're still queer. And that was really exciting. It's kind of exciting to watch them still, specifically because those didn't exist when we were kids.
Yes. Yeah, there's definitely a level of like, I don't know if wish fulfillment is the right word, but like, I don't think there's anything wrong with like enjoying children's media for what it is.
And anybody can watch animated stuff. So
yeah, it's frustrating and disappointing when you see like benchmarks roll back and things maybe start to go in the opposite direction. But I always encourage people to sort of look at the show in the context in which it was created and keep in mind that like showrunners and writers are unfortunately operating at the behest of a much larger organization most of the time that might limit what they are able to actually put on screen for us.
Yeah, I think that's really true. And it's not just a queer issue. There's issues with racial equality, gender, kind of religion, kind of all of those broader things too, and kind of how people are perceiving all of that. And so there's definitely a lot in general to consider with that, but there's also still a lot of media being made that I think is really great and is doing things the right way. And whether or not that's being made by a Disney or by something else that's independent and smaller, there's still plenty of media out there that we can definitely look at and really enjoy. And again, just to really drive it home, I'm a big proponent of, if animated is not just for children, anybody can watch animated stuff. And no matter what people say, that cartoons and other animated programs and animated movies, those are for everybody. And there are some that are specifically not made for kids, and that is also worth recognizing as well. Just a big fan of animation. So, but I want to say that probably one of the biggest moments for me that kind of felt like a we've arrived moment was actually Moonlight, which came out in 2016, directed by Barry Jenkins. And this is, for those who don't know, it won Best Picture. It
was the La La Land scandal.
It was the La La Land scandal. They read La La Land as the winner, but actually it was Moonlight, which was incredible that Moonlight ended up winning Best Picture because it is a queer story with an all-black cast. It's like it was a film that wasn't like the big blockbuster or anything like that in order to kind of achieve this. And it really is just a fantastic movie that really looks at a different kind of queer life that some folks maybe don't know about, don't realize is out there without kind of looking at it. And importantly, kind of the intersectionality of queerness with other parts of our society, whether it's race or poverty, those kind of things. It's really a great film. But just the fact that there was, these, however you feel about the Academy, which, they're not great, but the fact that we had progressed enough as a society that it wasn't just, Tom Hanks dying of AIDS that was able to get the, kind of pull on the heartstrings of the big names in media, but this big
He's
story.
referencing the movie Philadelphia.
Yes. But but this kind of story is something that was able to appeal to a wider audience, and I think that's something that was really exciting and significant. And it hasn't been the last one that have done really well in those kind of at the Academy Awards and those kind of things. Everything Everywhere All at Once is a great example of something that's kind of an intersection of race and queerness that has also come on and won Best Picture since then. So that was really cool. It's very much up my alley of the kind of things that I really like. So it was really cool to see that. And it wasn't just the it was we were able to prove that movies about queer people were important beyond just Brokeback Mountain, which I think is really cool. Not that Brokeback Mountain's a bad film. I really like Brokeback Mountain, but
I mean, well, first of all, the first thing is, for the love of God, I'm so happy we have more queer media that isn't fucking depressing. But speaking of queer media that can sometimes be fucking depressing, I am once again a liar. And Tila Tequila was not the first one. It was Rent.
What was it? You're so right.
Wait, I'm sorry. Say again.
Rent.
Oh yeah. You see, I didn't watch Rent till college. But yeah.
I was a theater kid, and I watched Rent. I watched Rent so many times. I have seen so many different productions of Rent. Rent was my entire personality. When Rent came out, we were still on AOL Instant Messenger, and they had profile pictures of the characters from Rent.
Oh my gosh.
And I used those. Rent came out in 2005.
I'm having such a visceral, full body flashback right now to when that came out on DVD.
Truly, the only reason I thought of this is because Patrick said Tom Hanks dying of AIDS provided absolutely no context for anybody.
And
born.
Just kept moving.
Oh, yeah. Context being only AIDS.
Context being it is a movie in which he died of AIDS.
Yeah.
Not Tom Hanks is dead. But Angel dying of AIDS in Rent.
Yes. Yeah.
And that is Rent is the first gay thing I ever saw.
You're right.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And for a lot of people, I think that was, again, probably one of the things that hasn't held up as well. But really it was a lot of people's first exposure to queer stories.
I think the only thing you could really argue about Rent that, what do you mean he doesn't hold up well? What parts are you referencing? Because you need to be specific about that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the music in Rent is great. But the some of the things some of the stereotypes, like Tina Menzel's character. Oh my gosh.
Okay, cool.
Maureen.
So I just think it's really important for you to actually say the things that we think that doesn't hold up in this kind of no, but you were about to just move on. I think it's really important to talk about the things that maybe aren't as nice and shiny about groundbreaking queer media, like the fact that a lot of people are concerned about Rent as a property because Jonathan Larson himself was not queer, and a lot of people are concerned by how, at least in the movie, and at least as much as I know as a person who does not know these people about their lives, many of the people who were in Rent are not actually queer. And also, you were about to point out, the stereotype of Idina Menzel's character being kind of a slut.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh yeah. The what is it? The bisexual slutty person stereotype,
yes.
Right?
Yes. For sure.
And how a lot of Joanne's insecurities in her relationship with Maureen is the fact that Maureen is bisexual and has dated men, and Joanne is very much like kind of a stereotype of like an upstanding lesbian, in that she has never once been attracted to men and has never, you know, gone out with a man, which there's like a lot of stereotypes and a lot of queer phobia in that sense, even within the queer community. So those are definitely some things that, you know, you could definitely point to very rightfully about Rent and, you know, talk about that. But I think it's a great piece of media to point to, especially because like the movie, I won't say that it had like such a gangbusters release because like I didn't know what the fuck that meant when I was 12 years old. But like the movie came out in 2005. The musical was actually like a really big hit in it premiered in 1996. Granted, you could also argue that part of that was because Jonathan Larson died. And everybody's like, ooh,
yeah,
that's
I
kind
think
of sad.
some people had issues, like the types of issues people always take with like stage to film adaptations of anything. Like people are always going to have issues, but from the perspective of we who were 12 when that movie came out, who were never going to see the musical on Broadway, like before the movie came out, because we were 11, it was still like core memory building block material. And I think it's okay.
Absolutely.
For this
and
media.
I think I learned more about AIDS from Rent than I have ever learned in any of my years of education.
Yes. I think it's okay for it's okay for these pieces of media to not be perfect and to especially appreciate them as the products of the time that they were created. And things can be complicated and multiple things can be true. I do want to circle back to why is there this like Mandela effect thing about people thinking that Jonathan Larson was gay, and like did people think he died from AIDS and he didn't? And
many people do believe he died from AIDS. Yes.
Okay, but was not queer. Or what?
No, many people believe that Jonathan Larson was a queer man who died of AIDS. I don't remember why that was something that I believed at some point, but that is not the truth. Jonathan Larson was not a queer man, and I will confirm it in a second, but I'm pretty sure his death was like just a freak accident. It wasn't an accident, it was a health thing, but like a freak health thing.
Yeah, he died of an aortic dissection.
Yeah, that.
Believed to be caused by undiagnosed Marfan syndrome. And
so
it was the night before it premiered off
Mandela
Broadway.
effect thing.
Yes, many people conflate his activity as an ally in the queer community and as somebody who knew many people and was very close to people within the queer community who died of AIDS.
Yeah.
As being his own, like, story. And I think a lot of people conflate that because of he also made Tick, Tick, Boom, which is largely based off of his own life. And so, like, if you put them together, you're like, they're both the same, right?
Which musical is the autobiographical one?
Yes.
Yeah. And it really is. It was also, I think, a big symptom. I think it's a good point, because I think a big symptom of, if you're an ally of queer people, must be because you're queer too. It was a really, I don't think people feel that as much now, but for a long time that was the feeling. You like queer people. A lot of the time, that's kind of how a lot of people saw it as. If you're willing to spend time with a gay person, then maybe it's because you are too, you know. Or if you like partake in queer media, like it was only for queer people, and that's not true.
This podcast is a bad example of that, but
there was something.
But like, I think I'm queer. Like, I just think, like, obviously, I am aware that I grew up in a very privileged environment in this case, but like, I feel like I have such a hard time pulling up, I guess, formative queer media, because at no point did it feel like something that was forbidden to me growing up? Because I had many queer friends as a child, like as a young child. I had queer friends, and I knew many queer people. I think the very first gay person I believe I ever met in my life is my current next door neighbor when I was 6 years old.
You also didn't have a very, am I remembering correctly that you didn't have a very like religious upbringing?
I didn't. But even the members of my family who were religious were at no point religious in that kind of like zealot way. Like my grandparents are very religious, but they're also very much just like, why can't we just leave people alone, bro?
Right. Yeah.
Which I recognize is a very privileged environment to grow up in, especially as a Puerto Rican human who, like, there's a lot of stereotypes about being queer within a as a person of color. So, and there's a lot of, there's a lot of stereotypes of like people of color being even more intolerant of queer people, just for many reasons, culture, religion, all that. So I recognize that, as a Puerto Rican growing up in a Puerto Rican family with religious grandparents, the idea that at no point in my life was I ever told that being gay was bad is an anomaly. So I tended to approach media that had queerness in it as like, this is fine. Why are people freaking out?
Yeah. That is,
right.
Yeah. And it's definitely, that's definitely something that I think that more and more people, as they're growing up, are living in that situation. I remember seeing somebody, I didn't post on Reddit or Twitter or something like that, saying something about how their like baby cousin was like, what do you mean gay marriage was only legalized in 2015? And they were like all upset about it. And it was like, I think it's so cool that they can't even comprehend how recent it was because it's so normal in their life that queer people can get married and all that, kind of the queer people's existence is just a natural part of their life. And I think that's something that hopefully more and more people are being able to experience in their life and feel that way. So it's definitely really cool to kind of see how that's progressed since we were kids.
Right. I think part of the context of like why we think of these shows as groundbreaking and formative from the time period and perspective that we were watching them when they originally aired, versus, people who are going back and watching them now with fresh eyes and in like a current modern day context, is people need to understand like how rough the early 2000s and 2010s were, like for other media and just like us as kids going to school in that time. I went to Catholic school for all of, middle through, grammar through high school. And it was really like, kids throwing around, that's so gay as an insult at each other. It's really like those cheesy Hillary Duff ads about not saying that's so gay that we look back at now and cringe. It's really like, no, those were targeted at the at the kids I went to school with. That was kids really sucked. So
I just think back at like how that was in our vocabulary, and I was like, that's so fucking cringe. I can't believe I ever said shit like that.
Yeah, for sure.
I remember like one of my really good friends in grade school So we're like 11. Other boys in the class would like call him gay and say like, that's so gay. And he would get really upset about it. And I would just like, all I could say was like, what do they know? They don't know anything. But also, that's not it. Why does that have to be an insult? Like kind of the reverse, like, but if you are gay, that's okay. And I would still be friends with you and love you. And then like, I'm just going to wait for you to figure that out the next 5 to 7 years. That's fine. Kids were just so mean to each other about like the dumbest things. And I'm sure kids are still mean to each other today, just about different dumb things.
Absolutely. Everybody's a monster.
Everyone's a monster in 7th grade.
This is an anti-middle schooler podcast, in case you didn't know.
Yeah.
But not actually, because you'll rule the world someday. Please
For
don't.
sure.
Please don't put me on a desert island to starve.
Please be nice to me.
Anyway.
Please be nice to me. I've been through so much.
Circling back to, I think, probably 20 minutes ago now. What about fan fiction?
Oh my God.
Listen to me. I grew up as a fucking... I was a perfect little, quiet little child that just read her day away in the corner. I read real books and I read manga and I read day and night. I'm in fucking publishing. You would think I'm supposed to read real books all the time. I spend 90% of my screen time reading fan fiction. And that is how I have been probably since I started using the internet. And I could not tell you at what point my brain said, Amanda, go find fan fiction. I don't know how I found fandom spaces. It just appeared someday. And it as a 12-year-old, every time somebody insisted that characters in a TV show were straight, I was like, what are you watching?
We're not watching the same show.
We are not watching the same thing. You're a fucking liar. And like, nowadays, there is increasingly more and more evidence and validity to my ships, but that's a completely different conversation.
But originally, fandom and fan fiction is that beautiful space where the subtextual becomes textual. And all
where the subtext becomes the only canon we care about.
Yes. Where you can take when the camera pans on an actor's face for about 10 seconds longer than usual, and they're just looking at each other, and then you can write 10,000 words about that and put it online. It's beautiful.
For me to enjoy.
There are millions of words about 10-second too long glances.
I'm sorry, millions?
Millions of pages, probably.
I can almost guarantee you we're in the trillions.
Yeah. Oh yeah. For sure. I'm just saying million as in that is something that is a number that is so big I cannot comprehend it.
What is the number after trillion?
Quadrillion, I think.
Oh, it does. I hate when numbers start doing that. I forgot that numbers have a pattern.
Pattern is just called math. We don't do math because we're gay. But I would say I have read some fan fiction. I actually don't read that much fan fiction. Part of it is that
I want you to so badly.
You did not grow up in the fandom space. I'm
true.
Convinced that it is genetic. You needed to have like really been exposed to it at a young age to really understand, to be able to, first of all, navigate fandom spaces and then also find them.
Yeah. Because before fanfiction.net, and before an AO3. And I think
Live Journal.
possibly even before Live Journal. I
think it was Xanga.
I remember bookmarking web pages to like an individual person's maintained GeoCities website where they would publish their own stuff or collect a database linking to other stuff that was available online. And it would be like one GeoCities website dedicated to like either a niche fandom or a niche ship pair. And that was it. And if you wanted a different pairing or you wanted a different fandom, you had to find a different website for it.
Remember when the internet had websites?
Yeah, and not just repositories. Yeah.
I think
fanfiction is so important to me.
Yeah, I definitely think I exist more in the fan art space. I'm a big fan of seeing how people draw these people who are in love. Despite
that's because you're illiterate.
It is because I'm illiterate. I really the fact that I like 95% of the reading that I do is Dungeons and Dragons books and also
Wikipedia
emails
pages.
And Wikipedia pages. That's about it.
And comics.
Yeah, and not even that. Like, I'm having a hard time even reading comics. I'm like, really, it's a problem.
You're looking at the pictures and skimming.
Yeah.
But I am a big fan of fan art. Fan art also is pretty colors. That's really what it is.
It also fits in on your porn sites.
Yeah, true. That is definitely something that comes up. That is related. But anyway, yeah. So there is a lot of fan fiction out there. So even if you're not satisfied, with what's out there, AO3 and all the, there's other sites out there too. You can even find it
on Tumblr.
Yeah, Tumblr. You can find it even on Twitter. Sometimes I've seen it come up. There's just so many different places where you can go read other people who have made all the queer dreams come true, because
go make art. Make beautiful art in the tags of somebody else's post if you need to.
Make beautiful gay as shit art.
Yeah.
Art is inherently fucking gay.
It's true. That's why I am convinced, this is a personal thing, that straight bros who do AI art, the reason they do it is because most artists are too gay for them. And that's like a personal theory, how that's why they're so obsessed with taking over art.
That is such a niche take.
I don't know. There's got to be a reason. That's what I'm telling myself. There's got to be a reason they think this makes sense.
Don't use AI to make your art. Use AI to do your dishes.
Please.
So that you can make art.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit. This is just because it's a personal obsession of mine. I want to talk a little bit about queer-related reality TV. We already started talking about it a little bit with Tila Tequila. But main reason is I've spent the last, when did I start? September.
Somebody's typing some very interesting things in this Google Doc.
It's the cat.
I'm just letting
it happen.
Hi, Toast.
So with since September, I started watching from season 1 RuPaul's Drag Race, and I have now watched I'm at 30-ish seasons that we've watched since September, between US, UK, All Stars, Canada, Down Under, Mexico.
Oh, never mind. You're adding them. Never mind.
Yeah.
The spin-off shows.
Yeah, the ones that are in other countries. And I think I do think part of it is kind of the context of when it was made, or who is making it in this case, because, RuPaul is, of course, one of the most, if not the most famous.
RuPaul is RuPaul.
Drag queen. Yeah. But also RuPaul isn't the best. She definitely, she literally fracks, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Listen, we all do something morally questionable.
But I think one of the things that is so much fun, that has been so much fun, is kind of taking this whole other category of performers, being drag queens, that I only rarely saw in other media, and now becoming obsessed with like multiple things about their lives. So like Trixie Mattel and Katya, and watching them just be idiots on the internet is so much satisfying. And it's really fun because there's very few things are as queer as drag queen drag shows. And it's just something that's been a lot of fun. And also it's just, I can sit back, enjoy queerness. And, you know, there's some controversies in that, like, you know, they can be mean to each other in ways that I'm kind of like, oh, that's a little rough. But, you know, in general, it's also a really nice thing where I can kind of absorb myself into like the queer space of it all and just enjoy watching queer people make queer art and really enjoy it and have a lot of fun doing that, and really kind of how it helped bring a lot of queer media or queer people into media, like Jinx Monsoon, who is now literally on Broadway as Jinx Monsoon in a musical, not playing a drag queen in a musical, but playing Mama Morton in Chicago, or playing Audrey in Little Shop of Horrors. You know, it's really fun to have how this has like really brought queerness and a really particularly queer art kind of into the mainstream, and how you know, media is really helps bring something that is traditionally just done on stage in a lot of cases into the broader world. And I think that's a really fun one. And I think something like, you know, Tila Tequila was probably a great example of having, you know, reality shows. I mean, one of the things about reality shows is it is supposed to mimic in some way reality, and, you know, showing queer people beyond just something that's scripted and kind of in whereas uncut and rough and that kind of stuff. So anyway, just because I've watched so much of it, I felt like I had to mention it. This cat is literally like on the keyboard. I've added so many letters to our
Oh no,
Google Doc.
he's taking over the podcast.
Gonna take over your house too.
He has so much to
Yeah,
say.
he does have a lot to say.
Please, Toast, tell us. What is the meaning of life?
Apparently a lot of the letter M and also brackets.
He's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So queer media in the future.
Jesus Christ. I just clicked into it.
now he's
now he's deleting things.
He's also rubbing the screen as he does it. I think he knows what's going on. Anyway, queer media in the future. So where do you think we're going? Where do you think queer media is going to go? What's the future hold for queers in media?
Gays kissing? I don't know, bro. They just keep canceling shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're canceling a lot of stuff in general. That's, you know, probably not as much commentary on the state of Hollywood because, you know.
Well, yeah, that's but like I think it's important to note that, you know, obviously shit's getting canceled left and right because Hollywood is a mess. But in terms of media in general, when shit's gotta go, the first thing that goes is the gay shit and stuff about people of color.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you not remember how angry I was when they canceled Sense8?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said we're getting back on the plane and going back.
Yeah, you're right. It is something that really is a big risk, is that it is stuff about queer folks and about people of color that are probably the first ones on the list for being canceled. And, you know, I think it's it seems harder for things to get renewed for another season, for example. It feels like, you know, for some of the shows, so like, you know, the episodes drop and they go, and by the way, we're making a season 2, where for queer stuff, we're waiting for weeks, months, years for them to say, oh yeah, we're making something new. So yeah, it's definitely a big risk of where things are going.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, art in general is a risk. So there's the more pragmatic way to think about it. And like, unfortunately, I'm not even going to say unfortunately. I have a very pragmatic mindset, mostly because I have worked in corporate media. And, you know, at the end of the day, things like this are businesses. So like if they were able to turn around and show me numbers and be like, well, this isn't bringing in a lot of money. Like the first answer is, okay, fine. You have substantiated it. And then the second answer is, why don't you promote shit? You gotta market things.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm so disillusioned from that, like what the current like streaming model is for, like, you know, Netflix canceling things, HBO canceling things, and then removing old finished shows from their streaming platform. I'm so disillusioned by the current state of media, unfortunately, that
it's hard to think of what the future is going to look like, because honestly, we're circling back around to cable TV, bro.
Yes. Yeah.
We're circling back around to cable.
Yeah, it's hard to think of the future at all, much less the future of queer media. So I'm going to say, I think the future of queer media hopefully is more independent and small business media and independent publishers and that type of stuff. Support small content creators directly and not corporate overlords. Is that fair? Does that make sense?
It does. The future of queer media for me is fan fiction. That's where I started. I'll die on AO3. Like I am really like holding on week after week, begging and pleading for my OTP to be canonized, and And when they inevitably are not, I will be sad, and then I will say fuck everything, and then I'll find a new OTP. I don't know. I feel like it comes around to a point where it's just, I take what I can get and I swirl it away and then I make it mine.
Yep.
But if you take anything from this, go find fandom, and also buy physical media.
Yes. Absolutely.
Buy physical media, my guy.
Yeah.
Or if they take it off your streamer, and no, I'm not going to say it. Should I not say it?
Pirate it.
Yeah.
It's a victimless crime.
If the physical media doesn't exist, it's not your fault.
Remember when we used to be able to stick a VHS into a VCR and record television?
Yeah. Remember TiVo? You had to have a separate device.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say I definitely agree with what you're saying, Bernadette, because I think one of the things that is, having discovered Dropout, Dropout.tv.
About the independent creators thing, not about the piracy thing. Got it.
Yeah. Yes. About the independent creator thing. I mean, definitely pirate Disney shit. I don't care. No.
Pirating, it takes so much more effort than it used to.
Yeah.
I think that was the point of the streamers. I think they wanted the streamers to be good and convenient for long enough to people to forget how to pirate things effectively. And
it's a lost art.
Yeah, it's a lost. It's a lost art. Exactly.
But also, things like LimeWire, don't exist anymore, and that made it so easy. There are alternatives, but like I have to go find them, bro.
We're gonna talk more later.
DM Bernadette if you want to pirate stuff.
Yeah, but I think like Dropout is a great example of, it is small independent media that is, they've gotten, really popular. So they have the money to create really high quality stuff. But even
they're
before,
putting that money back into the hands of their creators to make more cool, new, interesting stuff.
Exactly. But even the early stuff before there was this like really high production value, because they cared about the media they were creating and it was tied to their own personal success and all that kind of stuff, they put in a lot of love and effort into the stuff they were making. And it really has kind of opened my eyes to really the idea of a lot of independent media, because on Dropout, most of the people on Dropout are queer to start, but also, when they introduce people on the Chiron that shows people's names, it also shows their pronouns, for example. And, they have, on some of their, the Dungeons and Dragons show there's queer people left and right in those things, queer relationships, whether it's with the players or with NPCs, and they're doing even throughout everything, there's just so much queer representation and representation of yes,
and thoughtfulness to how they approach these things, think about these things, handle these things. And, it really feels like they are trying their best and not just doing like lip service.
Yes, absolutely. And I think there's really a lot out there. And whether it's, people who are posting videos on YouTube to the big names in internet TV, if you will, like Dropout, Try Guys and Second Try, those kind of people. There's a lot more thoughtfulness, as Bernadette said, in a lot of that. And I think that's a great place to kind of for where the future of queer media can live, because I also think what's important is one of the things we risk about is letting the mainstream big name corporate names of media kind of dictate queer content, is then being the ones that are making all of our queer content, is then they get to decide what is and isn't acceptable. And they shouldn't, because we shouldn't be assimilating into what they want. So I think that's a great one. But I also am remaining optimistic that we're going to continue getting queer stuff despite everything that's happening in a lot of different places. I think ultimately we're going to, the struggle is going to have to continue, and we should never stop fighting for things. But, by, like I said, buy physical media, support the different queer content. And I think that we really could have a great future of queer media where it's just kind of something that is standardly happening and will continue that way in the foreseeable future. And I think there's a lot of some of the greatest queer media that we haven't seen yet will be coming out in the future. And I'm really, really excited to see what kind of comes up. So with that, is there any final thoughts that you guys have?
Nope.
No.
Well, our brains are now empty. We've done it.
Said all of it. And now we have 4 pages of cat notes in the Google Doc.
That's
true. Is it only 4 pages? Did Toast stop? So.
Yeah, he's curled up with a little cinnamon roll.
Toast stopped. Got it. Okay. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Don't forget to check us out on GateCrashers.fan and GateCrashers Pod on all of the social media.
Yeah. Happy Pride Month, everybody.
Yay.
Happy gay.
Yeah. Well, and be sure to keep tuning in. We got some queer content coming out this month for Pride Month, and then we have the next season will be coming shortly of GateCrashers Pod. So thanks, everybody.
Be sure to Venmo your fellow queers.
Yes, send them $5 for iced coffee.
Thank you.
Be an ally.
Bye.
GateCrashers.